Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we're going to get into that one scene from Saving Private Ryan.
Whew. Let's dive on in.
All right.
All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see/hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that
people find average media.
That's right. Hopefully we're a little bit above that average,
yeah.
But who knows? You guys tell us in the comments.
Yeah, tell us in the comments. Hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube.
Yes.
Listen on all the podcast places.
Trying to grow the channel.
Yeah,
that
whatever
whole
you
thing.
can do. We're getting real close to 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, if you like what you see/hear.
Yeah.
Then
we would appreciate it.
All right, let's get into that one scene from Saving Private Ryan.
This is what year? This is
98.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I think this is really during a part of Spielberg's career where he kind of
rules the 80s, right?
Well, and I think he was doing fantastical stuff, though. Other than like The Color Purple, almost everything else that he did, well, and of course, Batteries Not Included, which we know is based on real events.
Of course.
But other than those, really, he's doing
just
fantastical
like Howard the
stuff.
Duck,
Yeah,
right?
just like Howard the Duck. Again, it's one long story. But other than that, like he's really doing more fantastical, cinema ready kind of stories. And then at some point in his career into the 90s, he goes, you know what, now's the time.
Let's do some dramas.
Let's really dig into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to varying degrees of success, maybe on the downside, we did do Amistad. And I think that, that was one that we felt like was a little bit more of a miss. Then obviously you have the real hits, like you have Schindler's List and this, where he is he wants to make sure he gets it factually correct, right?
Yeah.
So I know that you've done a little bit more research into some of this, as far as
we've done research into the scene, but just give a little context for the people who may be listening that may not know the full breadth of what this day means. D-Day obviously is the scene we're doing. I guess we didn't say that, but it should be obvious.
It's the scene in Schindler's List.
Yeah, it is. And I remember seeing this in the theater.
Same
and
here.
Like everyone, I remember walking out of the theater and it was just dead silence.
Yeah.
Because it's a really good movie and well done and effective. And the scene is the most effective for sure.
But it's definitely one of those newsflash, war is hell.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
Exactly. But, obviously on June 6th, 1944, 160,000 Allied troops landed along 50 miles stretches of heavily fortified French coastline to fight Nazi Germany on the beaches of Normandy, France. We're on Omaha Beach here. This is the Dog Green sector is who we're watching. That's who they're portraying in the movie. And this Omaha Beach scene cost $11 million to shoot. Just the scene.
20 minutes.
$11 million to shoot, 4 weeks to shoot it. Involved 1,000 extras, some of who were members of the Irish Army Reserve, and a bunch of them were amputees already. So they were some of the people that were losing arms and legs in this brutal scene. But obviously, this is Spielberg is really giving us a doorway into a really brutal day in this very brutal war. I want to end on this from a research perspective as far as the day itself, but Tom Hanks had a really interesting quote that I wanted to read real quick about just the events of that day and just being there and just being there in general. But he revealed the film captured only a fraction of Omaha Beach's importance. We were interlopers, of course. We had the audacity, the hubris to think that we could capture some of this place means of the history of the world. It turns out we sort of did, but at the end of the day, all you can do is kind of bow your head in understanding that the great providence that had happened there. I don't think anybody who has semblance of historical knowledge, or even without it, can go to a place like that. They're scattered all over France, or scattered all over Europe, and not take a pause there and think, what would I have done if I had been a 19-year-old kid on that day?
And I think that is probably the most masterful stroke of the way this scene is produced and telegraphed, which is the confusion and terror,
especially these first few minutes,
right? The confusion that all of these people, all these boys really felt is telegraphed so well because like, yeah, you may have been briefed, but is that boat, which isn't even a boat, it's like a shoebox. Yeah, it's like a metal shoebox. They've stuffed a bunch of people in. The second that it hits land, it's like it doesn't matter what you've seen in maps. Like you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
That very first shot, I mean, obviously the first shot of this is just his shaking hands.
Sure.
Hank's shaking hands, like, you know.
We should probably preface that the bookends of this movie, I mean, this is the real first scene, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But they have the Matt Damon as an old guy walking through the memorial of World War II and that kind of stuff. But to me, yeah, this is the real opening.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and it's funny, too, because I think that those bookends you see that he's an old man and that there's like the grandkids that are there that are like, why is grandpa always act weird? Like there's just like these kids that had it been a couple years later, they'd all be on their phones, but it's 98. So they're
honestly,
not yet.
The studio probably made them put that on there.
Right. But it's like this idea of like, yeah, why, you know, what happened to you? And if there could ever be I think a way of saying what PTSD actually is, like where it could really stem from, it's this scene. And when that door flops open on the boat and the whole first like 4 rows of guys just get mowed down.
Didn't even have a chance.
Didn't even know what happened. And I love this kind of hopping back and forth between, well, there's sort of 3 different camera points of view. The first is very much Hank's. He's really the only. I mean,
almost like a POV.
start to see Tom Sizemore, and we're like, okay, he's somebody important. We start to see Giovanni Ribisi. Like, there's characters that we see a little bit of, and we go, okay, I should keep track of Barry Pepper, you know, or whatever. But for the most part, we're looking at this through Hank's eyes. He's the first real face of a human being that we've seen at the beginning of this scene. So that's one point of view. The second one is sort of omniscient. It's the one that goes underwater at one point, which we'll talk about in a minute. Incredible sequence.
Have to talk about that.
It's floating around a lot. And then the third one is this faceless enemy. Mostly from this kind of crow's nest of where the machine gun is at. And that thing is just barking. I mean, it's just gunk, 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 and those shells are flying out and there's smoke.
I love that we get to see the POV of the enemy. I think that's super important here because a lot of war movies won't show both sides. Right? And even though we're not necessarily getting to know the characters that are shooting them or whatever, you know, that would be pointless because within minutes they're going to be cooked out of there anyway.
Completely. And instead, I'd say that the point of view that is that enemy point of view with the machine gun feels more akin to like Michael Myers' point of view in Halloween, right? Like it is this like thing that is so much more powerful than the characters that we're worried about, right? It's up above. It can see all of them. None of them have anywhere to hide. And this thing they have so much more firepower.
I mean, it's pure chaos.
Yeah, it really is. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And like, you can understand like how you would be silent through something like that, right? And just kind of just being like thrown into that situation because he's really good at kind of creating these worlds, right? And this is a world that already existed that there's historical context with. So it's not some fantasy thing like you're saying with Spielberg. So I think if he didn't do Schindler's List, he probably wouldn't have done this movie either. But I think that probably gave him the confidence to do it. And you know, it's a big task. You know, it's about, you know, he's a Jewish guy. Like this war is, you know, it's something very sentimental to him. But, you know...
Well, and, you know, we talked about that, too. Like, even with a miss like Amistad, where there was some tonality issues...
It's not 100% miss. Like, it's
fine. Well, and what I was going to say is, where it succeeds is in those slave ship moments. To your point of creating a world that feels very real. He did his research. So in those moments where we're in there, you're like, yeah, this is probably as close as you could get to it cinematically. And I mean, and
it really is like
the vets said so, right? I mean, vets said like, that's as close as you'll ever get.
I've seen. The only other thing I've really heard that about is Platoon, which I can see that as well. But I mean, the absolute scale of this production is one of the most impressive parts of the scene, right? Like, I mean, the amount of extras capturing that chaos on Omaha Beach, and you just get thrown right into the battle. And, you know, the underwater shit is crazy because you're trying to think of that as a camera guy, like what you're having to do and try to keep in focus and do all of these things. And just the way they shot it with the bullets coming through and people, basically drowning right out off the side
because their gear is dragging them down. And you see the one poor guy
climbing on dead bodies to get out of there.
This happens so many times in this sequence and I think it's a testament to how well choreographed and written this scene is, which is funny because you're like, there's people screaming, but there's no discernible dialogue because it's just confusion. But you go, what they must have done is mapped out the overall like thing that they wanted to film, like from point A to point
and then just
Z or whatever. Well, no. And then I think what they did is they wrote all these tiny set pieces, right? So case in
just
point,
little stories,
these little encapsulated stories, and that they had to choreography it so that they happened over each other so the camera can whip around. I mean, it isn't a Altman one shot, but even though it's juxtaposed and there's a lot of edits, it feels like a one shot because we're watching these characters do things. And absolutely. I think
the way it's edited, I think definitely contributes to the chaos
completely. And this first one is in this underwater scene, all these guys get dumped over. They're drowning because of their gear. And you see this guy and he's frantically. And so all of a sudden, even though you're like, I don't know this person's name, I can barely see their face, but I'm identifying with them because, oh my God, how terrifying is that? You can't get your gear off. He gets it off. Boom, boom. 2 bullets come through the water, kill him.
Again, not a chance.
And we see versions of this. The Pyrrhic, like, it's so useless and sad how many people get killed as other people are trying to help them in this sequence. And it keeps happening over and over. And it just like... it suddenly goes from like, you think about movies where you're like, oh, well, I like that character. I've gotten to know them. And then it pulls the psycho on you. And it's like, actually, they might die. Mm-hmm. It does that to the point where like after 5 minutes, you're like, these guys are just paper plates.
Getting through that first 25 or 26 minutes of the film, you don't ever want to see anybody get killed again, no matter what their uniform is, no matter what they stand for, because the carnage is just, it's too hard to fathom.
We're throwing away all of them.
I kind of forgot how much memorable stuff like that was in here.
Oof.
The key one being the guy who gets shot in the head with the helmet on and he takes it off. He's like, oh my God.
Lucky bastard. And then immediately gets shot. I was like, when I was watching this, I was waiting for that scene. And then in my head, I was like, was that in this or was that in Starship Troopers? And I was like, no, it's in this. There's something similar in Starship Troopers.
Exactly. And the same thing with, Hanks is trying to call in, backup or whatever. And he's talking to this guy and he keeps going back to him and goes to him twice.
Yep.
And the third time he goes back and his face is gone.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, fuck.
I mean, it is. Well, and that's all. That all actually is in one shot.
Yeah.
Which you go, that is great. That they just like the last time, you go
well,
one,
they make it feel like
two,
it's one shot, yeah.
And then they come back and they're like they replaced it with that body. And I mean, again, the fact that there are those little bits, I think another one like that very much focuses in on Hanks is when all of our sound, this amazing sonic
is that when Barry Pepper kind of goes silent, or because he's the sharpshooter?
Well, it's even before that. It's early. I think it's
when he's like wandering up the thing.
Yeah,
and he's dazed. He doesn't. He's
everything is like it's muted to the point where you're like, oh yeah, that's what happens if somebody like fires a gun next to your head. Not that I've ever had that happen, but there's that like pop and there's like, and you can't hear anything. And what he's watching is so sad. And the one that stands out to me is there's the guy who's wandering around. He looks like a little boy looking for his baseball, but he's looking for his arm.
Yeah.
Right? And there's just gore. And he looks around and he finds it on the ground and he picks it up. And then like when he picks it up, he gets this like weird look on his face like, well, now what do I do? And he just sort of like wanders off into the fog with his arm. And you're like...
Great little side character.
Yeah, you're just like, what? Of course that's what that would feel like. Like, you have to think, even though we don't see it, you would have to think, all of these guys have been taught about triage. All of these guys have been taught about, like, how, what to do if you have a bullet wound. Like, all these different things.
Honestly, the first thing we see with Hanks, not only just his handshaking, but also this moment that you're talking about where he's finally getting it out of the water, literally climbing over bodies underwater to get out of the water.
Yep.
And you have all these hedgehogs, which is an amazing visual thing.
Yes.
Which is kind of the 3D, like X marks the spot thing.
They're big kind of
there, but there's a ton of them.
things, yeah.
And they kind of are able to use them for protection from the bullets, which is kind of cool. But
only if there's bodies hanging off the front of them.
But they're actually, I think, made for to stop any boats coming in and stuff like that.
Right, that they can only get
way.
so far, right?
Yeah. So, anyways, him walking up out of this red ocean, right, of all this blood, like at this point, and he's like pouring out red water out of his helmet, and they're just, and it's all muddy, and it's just, again, chaos. This is another moment of weakness where he totally slows down, and he is physically struggling and emotionally struggling, right? And he kind of has to get to this point where he's like, okay, I need to snap out of this and need to act now.
There's a guy yelling at him. There's another soldier that's like, what do we do?
Yeah,
like,
it takes a minute.
Oh my God. And you just go, how do you plan for that? How does anyone know what they're supposed to do in that moment, right?
I mean, you would hope you'd get some communication about it, but
right.
I mean, again, like, many of these guys didn't even have a chance.
No, not at all.
And we cut to the end of all the dead bodies on the beach and everything after they've kind of broke through and cleaned out the murder holes.
Yep.
Which is a great term, murder hole.
Yeah. To your point, you actually said it out loud, like nobody has a chance. That's like our introduction to Giovanni Ribisi's character as he's like, we stopped the bleeding, we stopped the bleeding, and then the guy gets shot in the head. And he just throws all his stuff down. He's a medic, right? He throws all his stuff down.
Yeah, that's what you're.
And he's like, fuck, give him a chance. Like, at least give him a chance, right? But it's like, it shows, I mean, it wouldn't matter how many war cries as a soldier grunt that you knew, suddenly going into this spot where literally most people got mowed down. How could you possibly, after that moment... It just flies in the face.
So many oh shit moments.
It flies in the face of so many war movies that we've seen beforehand.
Yes.
Even ones that portrayed war in a dark light. I'm thinking of Apocalypse Now, and I'm like, Apocalypse Now, or even thinking of Full Metal Jacket or some of these others where it's like it was purposely trying to show like, look, this is how bad war is. There's something about this scene in particular that is just so disheartening that you're like, I don't care how big of a badass you are. Mm-hmm. You would have to have walked, if you were able to walk away from that experience, you would be like, I'm not alive because I'm smart. I just didn't get shot for whatever reason.
Oh, absolutely.
That's it. It's not because you're better than anybody or smarter or faster or more skilled.
Yep. You were in the right place. So that you had some luck on your side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I said, there's just so many oh shit moments here, but really just one of the most powerful and realistic renditions of what it would be like to be on Omaha Beach that day. Like you said, no war movie has really gone to this point.
Right.
And, how they shot it, everything about it. Like, I love the knife and the gum on the mirror to look at their enemy. I thought that was really clever. I'm sure that's some old trick or something, but like, love little stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we do get a little bit of them, trying to progress and break through, and then people start surrendering and whatnot. Last thing I'll say, this same year, Terrence Malick's Thin Red Line came out. And they battled in I think in the Oscars, neither of them won, but that's just as good of a movie if you ask me. And it's just kind of weird to have two prolific movies about war come out in the same year that.
Are they both about World War II, or is Thin Red Line about the Korean War?
I have not seen Thin Red Line in a while. I'm not sure. I think it might be World War II.
I mean, I guess the difference I would say is that Thin Red Line I liked a lot.
I loved Thin Red Line.
It's very meditative.
Yes, it's a totally different movie.
It's a totally different movie. It's not about the experience of war. It's almost about the quiet moments in war.
Yep.
As weird as that is to say, it's about the sort of sitting around and waiting, thinking about your life back
which
home.
Is, what, 70% of it, right?
It is, This is the other 30%.
Hanks and Spielberg did the other 30%.
Exactly.
And he obviously is connected to this stuff. He did Band of Brothers, of course, as well. And like, they have a history of doing that. Even the Pacific is pretty good. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. There was kind of a craze of these movies in the late 90s for some reason, but it was just kind of interesting that Thin Red Line, which is kind of a close-ish movie, like
same year
and
it
everything.
happens,
so kind
man.
of funny.
The last thing I'll say is I think that Spielberg's experiment with both this movie and Schindler's List made him a more interesting filmmaker afterwards, because
like AI, that kind of stuff.
I knew you were going to do that. Well, I would say, like, thinking that the next real fantastical movie he did after this would be Minority Report. His eye changed a little bit.
For drama, you mean?
I think I think his color palettes changed because obviously you have the black and white with the heightened red in Schindler's List, but things look old, things look grainy. Here, everything is bleached out and purposely looks ugly.
He's not afraid to try shit, which
but
is
he'd
why I
never
love
really experimented with that before, right? Like, if we think about like good Spielberg like color palettes, you think about Empire of the Sun, you think about Close Encounters, right? It's like it's big, it's beautiful.
Even like Catch Me If You Can, something like that.
Yeah.
Is very obvious. Yeah.
But there's something that happened to him, I think, after he was like, okay, I want to make, because like as incredible as Saving Private Ryan is, it's also a very ugly looking movie, purposely. Like the colors are, and
it's dark, it's damp.
Well, and sometimes the camera is splattered with blood. And
That's right.
mud.
I forgot to bring
you
that
know,
up.
like,
Yeah,
and
they
not
had
just
a
in
Children
this
of Men moment there.
It definitely does, and not just in this scene, but also at the end with the horrible knife murder that our who is it, Rhys Davies or that has to like there's blood on the actual lens of the camera, and you just go, that's new for him. Like he's trying different things there, and so
honestly,
I think it made him stronger.
Most of his career, he's not doing rated R stuff. Now just the pure gore of what he wants to show. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, we've obviously talked about some of the violence in here and how awful it was, and just what it would be like to be there. But like, this is gory as fuck.
I mean, it's probably one of the gorier things I've ever seen. And as somebody who loves horror films, I'm like, because it's real gore. It's not Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like I said, it's a guy looking for his own arm. Like, it's the most heartbreakingly disgusting gore I've ever seen.
Because there's emotion attached to it.
Exactly. Poor kids, those
amazing
poor guys.
Movie. Great to revisit the scene. Obviously, one of the biggest scenes, and a great movie, great opening of a movie. Like, it's hard to top that, especially for a war movie. But I'm sure someone will try.
Yes.
But please like and subscribe if you like what you see /hear. We do these one scenes every other week, and then we also have our ongoing festivals. We're in the middle of a Nick Cage Fest right now, so please join us for that.
Yes.
And we will see you next week. We are going to do Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Woo, can't wait.
Excellent.
All right. Bye, you guys.